Wow, all that other George does is talk about superhero movies. Well, not today. Today, we're talking about a supervillain movie. On the 4th of October 2019, I went to my local movie theatre, purchased one ticket for Joker, and then I got ID'd, of course. Really offended me considering this was a 15 rated movie. I guess they were just really careful about who was allowed to watch this movie. Yeah, this will get brought up a bit later. Although to be fair, this is the same guy that I purchased a Pepsi from when I went to go see, I think it was Captain Marvel, and he gave me £7 in 20p coins as change. Now to those watching who are outside of the UK and have no clue what I just said, I basically had an entire handful of change like this, which I had to shove all into my pocket. What an asshole! So to get back on track, I walked into the screening, sat down in between two people who looked just as nerdy as I was, and had quite the swirling mix of emotions as I watched the Joker unfold in front of me. I walked out of that theatre believing the film was great, but not quite the masterpiece I was expecting. So naturally I walked back in a few days later, and the second that I got used to the overall vibe of this film, I thought it was absolutely incredible. Joaquin Phoenix gives such an amazing performance. Just as expected really. There's a lot to his character in this film. He has to be this extremely broken down man that's struggling to be accepted into society, whilst also being mentally ill, whilst also being extremely confident in certain scenarios. The fact that Joaquin is able to perform all of these elements without coming across as contradictory in certain segments in the story is so impressive. Here you are, man, this is for you. You truly deserve it. Some of the shots in here were breathtaking from a very technical standpoint, but these shots were also really effective at highlighting the dark and gritty side of Gotham, which is very important to include when the film's purpose is to focus on an everyday man that slowly falls into a web of insanity because of the people around him. Overall, Todd Phillips did a magnificent job with this passion project of his, especially considering the fact that the only movies he's made prior were the Hangover films. They're very different to this one, I'll put it that way. I realise that he's often being labelled as this downgraded Martin Scorsese clone, but honestly I think he's managed to make something that's on par or at least very close to some of Scorsese's work. But there's a lot of people that disagree with me on that, and it appears like the Joker has become a very divisive film. Now I won't deny for a second that there was a lot of hype surrounding this film. People were pretty much calling this a masterpiece before it even come out. This film is my Black Panther. The movie empowered me. It helped me get over my rejection from the female known as Veronica, who'd rather date a Chad instead of a true gentleman who'd treat her well. Amazing cinematography, and a great performance from Joaquin Phoenix, who has fortunately moved on from artsy-fartsy hipster trash like her. Films like Joker are true art that often get misunderstood by filthy normies who watch MCU kiddie movies, instead of challenging, thought-provoking kino like Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice. Now I'm pretty certain this review is ironic, but it was pretty obvious that a lot of people out there were already calling this film perfect based off a couple trailers. Am I prepared to call this movie overrated or overhyped? No, because to anyone that's seen prior videos on this channel, you most likely already know that I'm very against people that blame the media itself for their colossally high expectations. It's not a fundamental problem with the film, it's a problem with your predictions. So this often leads to people saying the film isn't as deep as you think it is, or there's very little substance, without providing any kind of references, which is very helpful, of course. You heard me in the introduction to this video. I feel like there is a lot of depth to the story. The issue at hand is that people are seeing this Martin Scorsese concept and therefore anticipate the execution of one. But really this is just a pure character study of an icon that we have very limited knowledge about as a person. Joker fills in that gap perfectly. But nope, some people would just prefer to invent what this film is about. I came across this terrible video titled, "Why This Joker is a Real Loser."
Joker has a problem with black women.
The black woman he wants, the black woman who has the nerve to tell a strange man to leave her son alone. And not one, but two black women who appear to be social workers or doctors, but either way, just don't get it. This is the last time we'll be meeting. You don't listen, do you?
And don't forget the teenagers, definitely not Caucasian, who assault Joaquin Phoenix's character, Arthur Fleck, for no reason. You see, Arthur is a victim. He's the straight white guy telling women to smile more, or better yet, to laugh at his jokes.
Ugh, God, I've come across way more of these reviewers being political about the film than the actual film is itself. The Joker doesn't approve of society's mentality in Gotham. He doesn't hate any specific race or gender, unless you completely cherry pick the film to suit your own narrative. And isn't it so convenient that he leaves out the fact that majority of people killed in this movie are white males? It's ridiculous that he even have to bring that up as some kind of counterpoint, but he sure isn't going to mention it in this video because it completely destroys this whole train wreck of a video. So that's pretty much it in terms of some of the audience's judgment. But in the case of Joker, it's mainly been the media that have been attempting to bring it down the most. Now, I'm not talking one poorly researched article, I mean so many news publications have jumped on this bandwagon.
Make no mistake, neither the fictional character Joker nor the film is an endorsement of real-world violence of any kind, but certainly making a lot of parents, I think, nervous about letting their kids go see this movie, given what it could inspire.
Like, for God's sake, I'm 18 and 6 foot tall, and even I got ID'd when I purchased a ticket. This isn't a film for kids, it's not fun for the whole family. I love how this clip starts off reasonable and then the fabrication just hits. Because yeah, saying the Joker is to blame for future violent events is kind of ridiculous. This is the exact same point that's been made against video games for years now. The issue is that media and the types of content we consume can largely change our viewpoints on certain things. But in the case of Joker, his way of getting back at society is very clearly not presented as a good thing. Even if we sympathise with his character in some portions, the film overall is telling us that this is not a good thing. The film had the responsibility to tell us that, in the same way that people need to take responsibility for the ways they process the film. It's a complicated and very interesting conversation to be had, but dismissing everything and just resorting to claim that the Joker is going to make society evil really highlights who the real clowns are.